Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry, send me you time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. Hope you've all had a wonderful weekend. The Gunners win again and maintain their lead at the top of the Premier League. After a victory at Burnley, Manchester City and Liverpool both won at the weekend. Bournemouth obviously losing for Manchester City to have won. And so, you know what? I just want to take a moment to just reflect on how nice Sunday was in terms of watching the football, and Saturday evening, actually, because obviously we played at 3:00. You had Chelsea-Tottenham at 5:30. And then after that, you had the Liverpool Villa game. Then on Sunday, you've got Newcastle playing, and you've got, of course, Manchester City taking on Bournemouth. And at no point post 5 p.m. on Saturday, in fact, post 3:45 p.m. when we were 2-0 up at the break, did I worry or concern myself or feel any level of frustration or stress about what was going on elsewhere. And I know that in an ideal world, you want Liverpool and you want Man City and you want the teams around you to drop points, but that isn't going to happen every single week, right? They're too good a sides to be losing every single week and to be dropping points every single week. But the fact that we've done our job, the fact that we've got this cushion, the fact that we were able to maintain this cushion, you know, it's a really nice place to be in terms of stress levels. I'm not saying that the league is done. I've had many, many people try and bait me into saying that over the last couple of days, and I promise you, I will not be saying that. But we're in a really good, positive position, and we should enjoy that. We should embrace it. It means that the pressure's off a little bit for the time being. But obviously, there's a different type of pressure that comes with being in front and comes with being in the lead that we're also going to have to navigate as the season goes on. I feel like the game at Sunderland at the weekend is huge. It is huge. Because if Arsenal can get through that with all 3 points and really pile the pressure onto both Liverpool and Manchester City, who meet next weekend, and potentially extend our lead over one of, if not both of them, then that puts us in a really great position when we return from the international break. And listen, the fixtures are going to get tougher. They're going to get more difficult. The Champions League is going to intensify. And that means that we're going to have to, deal with more. We've obviously got cup competitions to participate in. The League Cup is there for us as well. Not quite sure yet when that Crystal Palace game is going to be played. There's some back and forth at the moment with regards to that from what we're reading and hearing. So listen, the toughest part, the harder part is still to come. I know you could make the case and you can make the argument that right at the start of the season, we've had some horrible fixtures, and we have. But in the early part of the season, there just isn't that same pressure. And you can't replicate the pressure that you feel in April, May, in August or September. That's just the way it is. So I'm under no illusions. There's a lot of work to be done. And I have said many, many times recently that I'm now expecting rather than sort of hoping. And that is a real shift, and a shift that I found myself reluctant to make. But when you look at how things have panned out, how we're performing, the levels that we're hitting in terms of our efficiency at both ends of the pitch right now, you kind of, and I would argue that at one end of the pitch, at the top end of the pitch, we're still not even close to where we should be in that sense. So yeah, I'm feeling really good, and I'm sure everybody else is as well. Look, the focus of today's episode is a certain Declan Rice. Now, I was watching a bit of Vikings last night, and I figured that Declan Rice, the way he controls, the way he stands out, the way he kind of dominates, would actually make quite a good Viking warrior. And so I decided to call him Declan the Dominant. Now, I saw in the chat a little bit earlier on, just before we went live, that a few people said it should be Declan the Destroyer. The reason I didn't go with Destroyer is because I feel like Declan Rice is so much more than that now. If you had asked me that question, or if I was because I'm weird sitting there one night trying to think of Viking warrior names potentially for Declan Rice, because that's what normal people do, right? If I'd done that maybe 2-3 seasons ago, I probably would have called him Declan the Destroyer. But to call him Declan the Destroyer now feels a little bit reductive when he's participating and impacting the game in every single phase. It's not just about what Declan does sitting in front of the back four now. It's not just about what Declan does at the other end of the pitch either. His all-round game has come on loads, and this is what I want to talk about and what I want to focus on today's pod. But Declan the Dominant felt a lot more reflective of what Declan actually brings to the table right now than Declan the Destroyer, and hence why I went with that. So bear with me. We're going to talk about Declan Rice on today's pod in great length, in detail. I want to get you guys' thoughts on the subject and on other subjects and questions as well, and all the rest of it from the live chat. So make sure you are involved and participating throughout. Also, if you haven't done so already and you're new to the channel, you should know the drill by now. But if you are new, make sure that you leave a like on the video. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. And if you're watching this back on playback, make sure you hype the video. That's a new thing on YouTube that we've been asking you to do, and apparently it really helps. So make sure you hype the video. If you're listening on Apple, please do leave us a review. We lost a bunch of reviews when we changed platforms. So even if you've done it in the past, try do it again, because we could really, really do with those reviews. And if you're on Spotify, well, we're not a million miles off of 1,000 reviews on Spotify, and that would really move the needle for us. So make sure that you're leaving us reviews on those platforms as well. Remember, you can check us out on Patreon too, patreon.com/The Chronicles of a Gooner. The link is in the description below, and there is a new Patreon pod out which focuses on our fullbacks. Are they the best in the world? Do we have the best set of fullbacks right now at Arsenal in world football? I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that. My reasons and lots more in the latest Patreon pod. It is available to you now. Remember, as a patron, you can sign up for less than the price of a cup of coffee per month. You get access to every single episode ad-free. Plus, you get bonus exclusive episodes, the next of which will be with you on Wednesday after the I keep calling them Slavia Prague game. Yeah, get over there, give us a support, and check it out if you'd like to. Really, really do appreciate it. I keep calling them Sparta Prague because when I was growing up, Sparta Prague were the Prague team that were always in the Champions League, wearing that burgundy strip, you might remember. Not Slavia Prague, who we're up against this time around. Okay, let's talk Declan Rice then, shall we? Declan the Dominant. Why do I call him that? Well, if we take it back to the very beginning of the season, I'd imagine that there were a few Arsenal fans that were looking on and thinking, you know, Declan Rice, is he at the level that we know he's capable of? I didn't really panic. I always felt that the performances were a little bit off and not quite as good and as all-encompassing as we know that they can be when it comes to Declan. But at the same time, I think there's a common theme with Declan Rice. I think he often starts seasons a little bit slowly. I think that's something we've become accustomed to over the last couple of years. I know one of them was off the back of a European Championships, and I think people put the maybe drop off at that point down to the tiredness and the fatigue and all the rest of it. Basically, everything that comes with not having a summer off and playing a major tournament instead. Obviously, England went as far as the final, the emotional drain of losing that final. We all looked at it and we all kind of went, I get it. You know, I can understand why. But as the season went on and as we got to like around about this stage, I think everybody's minds were put at ease. Everybody was confident that actually Declan Rice is fine and there's nothing major to worry about. And I think that experience that we've had with Declan over the last couple of seasons had me feeling a lot more relaxed when at the start of this season, I didn't think he was at his best. Now, Declan Rice is never bad. Declan Rice will always give you a 6.5, 7 out of 10 performance, right? At a minimum, just purely based on work rate, energy, ground covered, attitude, etc., etc. You're never going to get a bad performance from Declan Rice. But I feel like what we saw at Burnley was Declan Rice sort of saying, yeah, you know what? I've had my few games to get into my groove and get into my rhythm and settle and all the rest of it. And now I'm ready to go. And now you're going to get the best version of me, hopefully, between now and the end of the season. I think it was a real statement game. Now, people will play it down. People will talk down his performance at the weekend because they'll say it was at Burnley and all the rest of it. But for me, it's not about the fact that he scored or the fact that he won the ball back as many times as he did. And these were just some of the stats that we shared on yesterday's pod. And I'll just regurgitate some of those for you that maybe didn't catch Sunday's episode. Against Burnley, he ranked first in all of the below categories: touches, passes played into the box, total crosses, total carry distance, tackles, interceptions, duels won, and possession won. Declan Rice ranked number 1 in the match in all of those columns. So that's why I've called him Declan the Dominant and not Declan the Destroyer, because this is a guy that wasn't just winning the ball back for us, covering lots of ground, providing a real security to our defense. This was a guy that was doing that, but also doing a whole load more at the other end of the pitch, and who scored the goal that probably spelt the end of the game. I know Victor Gyökeres' goal was important. I feel like in games like that one in particular, the first goal is always massive. But, you know, Declan Rice's goal coming when it did, it took the game away from Burnley. And that was that. It was done as a contest. That's why I said earlier on, I was quite happy and chilled and relaxed at 3:45 p.m. rather than at 5 p.m. like I might have been in years gone by, because I really do believe that when we get our noses in front, we're in a great position to sort of hold on. And when we get to 2-0 against opposition of Burnley's level, with all due respect to them, that is game and job done. So Rice's performances in the first few weeks, they weren't quite what we know they can be. Again, though, they weren't bad. I think he's had to, and we've talked a lot about new relationships in the team. We've talked a lot about players having to understand one another, having to build those bonds and those understandings. Declan Rice has had to do that too with Martin Zubimendi, because Martin Zubimendi is not Thomas Partey. You know, Martin Zubimendi is a very, very different player, very different type of footballer. I felt like when it was Thomas Partey, he didn't have the technical level that Martin Zubimendi does. I don't think he had the same level of footballing IQ that Martin Zubimendi does. And I don't think his passing was as effective in terms of line breaking as Martin Zubimendi's is. Albeit that's something that the Spaniard has improved on, I'd say, since he's come to Arsenal, in terms of playing that pass a little bit earlier. And he's talked about that himself. But I felt like Declan Rice probably had a little bit more confidence in Thomas Partey on the physical side. And I don't mean speed or ability to cover distance. I just mean in terms of he's a bigger guy, bigger frame, greater reach, probably someone that you feel you can leave to his own devices from a defensive standpoint a little bit more than you can Martin Zubimendi. And that is not meant as a slight on Martin Zubimendi. I'd sort of expressed this concern over the course of the summer, and I had a lot of people coming at me and saying, you wrote Zubimendi off. You said he's rubbish. I never, ever once said the words that Martin Zubimendi is rubbish. What I said was that Zubimendi technically is not a player I have any questions about. But on the physical side, I do worry a little bit. And I said, even before Zubimendi was in through the door, that in order to get the best out of the Spaniard, we would need to adjust Declan Rice's role. And Declan Rice made that point. In a recent interview after an international game, he said to the press that Mikel Arteta had tweaked his role. And Mikel said, no, I haven't tweaked his role. What I've done is asked him to be more all-encompassing. What I've asked him is to improve his all-round game. And he has done that. And again, that's why I stressed the point, Declan the Dominant makes more sense than Declan the Destroyer, because he isn't just a destroyer. Can he destroy you? Yeah, absolutely he can. But he is dominant in the sense of ask him to take a top quality set piece, ask him to deliver it on the money, he'll do it. Ask him to, win a duel in the midfield, he'll do it. Ask him to score a goal, he can do it. He's just got this ability to impact and influence the game in a variety of ways. And I don't think there's many players out there that can do that. There have been times, right? There have been times where I've watched Declan Rice do certain things, and I'll say, yeah, you know what? Maybe technically he's not quite at that level. But there's other times where I watch him and I think, oh, flipping hell, I can't remember such a consistent level of free kick deliveries or corner deliveries, for example, since David Beckham was knocking about. I know that sounds like a big statement, but his quality of delivery right now is right up there. So I think Declan Rice is rightly getting a lot of praise for the display that he put in at the weekend. I think Declan Rice and Martin Zubimendi had to iron out a few bits between them before we saw that balance look the way it should. I think Martin Odegaard is important to that balance. And I think that obviously being without him the way we have has led to maybe more problems and more issues that we've had to kind of work out along the way. Eze's a fantastic player, but he's not Martin Odegaard. They play the role differently. So, for example, and we talked about this on an episode not that long ago, when Odegaard is in the team, when that midfield is made up of Zubimendi, Rice, and Odegaard, there are more rotations available to us as a team, and there are more rotations that we can do in comfort. Whereas when Eze is in the team over Odegaard, I don't think I ever really want to see Eze dropping in as the 6 to receive the ball, whereas I don't mind Odegaard doing that from time to time. And then that means that Zubimendi can step up into an 8 and Rice can step up. And there's just that fluidity in that rotation that I think makes us really difficult to predict and really difficult to deal with. When it's Eze in the midfield over Odegaard, and again, this is not meant as a criticism of Eberechi Eze, but it's just a different player, I feel like there are less rotations available to us. And maybe that helps in the sense of the job of Rice and Zubimendi is just clearer, and there isn't that sort of temptation to be lured into or drawn into something that isn't really for you. So, there are good and bad points to both sides of it. But my point is that with the different combinations, with the different players playing in other areas around the area that those two are necessarily responsible for, we're having to tweak and we're having to adjust. And the intelligence that the pair of them have displayed has been really, really encouraging to see and to watch. So I'm loving what I'm seeing right now from Declan Rice. And I think, Declan the Dominant is the way I would describe him right now. Someone said, what about Declan the Terminator? It hasn't got the D. It doesn't work. It's got to be, is it called alliteration, where the first two letters are the same? I think that's what it's called. I'm going to check that now because I'm going to look really, really stupid if it's called something else. And I put this out without alliteration, meaning the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. There we go. That's it. Yeah, that's what I was after. Joe says he's brilliant on Declan Rice, of course. Sometimes I wish he would play a first-time pass. That's my only small complaint. I agree with that. I think one of Declan Rice's biggest strengths is his ability to carry the ball. But the problem with that at times is that because he knows it's a strength of his and because he knows he can get us up the pitch and he can carry it, he maybe sometimes overlooks what's an obvious early pass that could be played that would get us up the pitch even quicker, because he naturally favors doing what he feels comfortable, which is picking up the ball and carrying it. So I agree with that. Like, I don't disagree with that. No player in the world is perfect. Okay, there's players that you look out all over the world that you think, yeah, really good at this, really good at that. No one's brilliant at everything. But Declan Rice is as close to that as you're going to get. And that's what makes him the dominant force that he is in this Arsenal team today. And we talked about it on the Patreon pod, so I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to go into it too much. Remember, the link is in the description below. You can become a patron for just £3 a month. You can sign up and get access to our bonus episodes. You'll get one after every match that we play. Plus, you'll get all the normal episodes ad-free, as well as a direct line into me and all the other patrons as well. So go and check it out. But one of the things that we talked about when we were talking about the fullbacks, and this is a theme that I think continues right the way through this group and through this squad, is that there is this kind of want and ambition of being really good all-rounders. And in the past, I've said, sometimes you can end up being a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I stick by that theory in general. But once you've mastered your trade, there's nothing wrong with going out and learning other trades and increasing your capacity to help in different ways and in different phases of the game. And I think Mikel Arteta has got someone like Declan Rice who's just, outstanding in the midfield in terms of covering ground, in terms of winning the ball, in terms of all of those things. But now he needs to do some more stuff, which is, improve in terms of your distribution. He's added the set piece delivery, which I don't think was really, maybe it was there at West Ham, but it certainly wasn't something that we were talking about. If you had asked me when we signed Declan Rice to write you a list of all the things he was going to bring, I probably wouldn't have put that in the top 5-10 things. Maybe that's me not understanding the player that we signed at the time. But the point I'm trying to make is that he's added more and more strings to his bow. And that's been really, really impressive and enjoyable to see and to watch and to see how it's all unfolded. And I feel like when you talk about, for example, the fullbacks, and we talk about them in the Patreon pod at length and in detail, you had Jurrien Timber, who came in as a centre-back, who we could see from the first minute that he put on the Arsenal shirt was an outstanding defender, but maybe wasn't quite as offensively impactful as Ben White could be. That was always the conversation, wasn't it, when Jurrien Timber arrived? Like, brilliant defender, trust him with my life from a defensive point of view, but do I trust him to provide what we need when we're trying to break down a team that are sitting back and looking to soak up? Is he going to give us that little bit more dynamism? And the answer at that point was probably no. But you look at it now, and you would argue that Timber is, again, someone that can have an influence at both ends of the pitch, and a huge influence. And the reason for that is because he's mastered one trade, defending, and now it's about adding more and more and more and more. It's about educating our players and developing our players so that they are as all-encompassing as possible, because if they are, they offer variety. And if you offer variety, you offer tactical flexibility. And if you offer tactical flexibility, you are very difficult to predict. And if you're very, very difficult to predict, guess what? You're 10 times harder to play against. So that, for me, has been the big shift for Arsenal. Yes, bringing in more players has helped with that. Adding more players has helped with that. Being able to relieve people when they're tired, when they're on red, when they're not working in the best possible way for whatever reason, to be able to make those changes and do them comfortably, that helps hugely. No debate, no question about that whatsoever. But it's also been about the development of some of our own individuals and where we've kind of got them to. And that's why I think right now Arsenal are looking as formidable and as comfortable as they are. Right, look, we're going to take a really, really short pause. When we come back, I'm going to take your thoughts. I'm going to take your questions from the live chat as well. So start getting those in. I'd love to hear from you. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. Like and subscribe. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner with me, Harry Simiyu. If you're watching this back on playback, make sure you do that hype the video thing as well. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review. Right, let's dive into the live chat and see what you guys are saying. I'd love to hear from you guys. AFC Cape Town says, am I being too negative thinking Marino in the 10 and 9 positions hasn't worked this season? See, I would argue that Marino's been better this season. Like, Marino last year got a run of games when he was playing as a 9. And he did have other spells in the team, of course, but that was when people started to realize, I think, that, you know what, it might not be his position, but this guy's super intelligent. This guy's very, very adaptable, and he is doing a fantastic and an admirable job for us in that position. And we've got to be grateful for the fact that we have this player in our squad that we've been able to mold into something different, because that was what was required at that time and at that point. Over time, I've kind of made peace with what Mikel Marino is. Mikel Marino is an excellent squad player, but when I pick my best Arsenal 11, he's nowhere near it. But that doesn't mean I don't value him, and that doesn't mean I don't appreciate what he brings to the table. I would say that there have been points this season where he's come in and done a really good job. I think right at the start of the season, Mikel Marino became a bit of a scapegoat because people felt that Arsenal were a little bit too negative in their approach and could have gone in a slightly different way. And had they done that, they might have picked up more points than they did. But I always felt like people were very quick to kind of jump on Mourinho's back at that point and say it's because of him, when a lot of the time it wasn't. Like, for instance, the City game at home, a lot of us were frustrated by that team selection, but Mourinho playing in there wasn't necessarily my problem. What was my issue at the time was that we didn't use Eze on the left and we went with Trossard. Now, since then, Leandro Trossard's done really well. You have to say, you have to tip your hat to him. You have to give him his credit. But I wouldn't go as far as saying that Mourinho hasn't worked this season. I think for me, and I can only speak for myself, I feel like I've made peace with what Mikel Mourinho is. I feel like I understand who the player is a lot better than I did previously. And I judge him by different metrics as a result of that. And I think only when you do fully understand what Mikel Marino's there to do, what his role looks like in individual games, because as I say, he's adaptable, and again, that speaks to that theme we've been covering already. I feel like then you can kind of, assess his performances and analyze them maybe a little bit more fairly. I mean, obviously I appreciate your view, mate, and thank you for getting involved. It's not my view at the moment. Like, I wouldn't go as far as saying it hasn't worked. I think there's more to extract from Mikel Marino, but I wouldn't say it hasn't worked. Juan Lewis says Marino is the biggest head scratch. He's so unpredictable, even he doesn't know what he will do. But again, that speaks to that point of tactical flexibility and unpredictability, doesn't it? I think Marino knows what he's going to do and knows what he wants to do, but I think his role varies so often, so often, that it's hard to kind of get a read on it or establish any kind of way of consistently analyzing what he's doing. Auntie Clockwise says, is Semenyo anywhere near the top of the shopping list in January? And do you think he's the solution to this much talked about left-sided problem? I don't think we've got a left-sided problem anymore. I think adding Eze to that mix, and obviously Noni Madueke as well, who hopefully will be back after the international break, I think that's made it okay for now. But I do really like Semenyo. I've got to say, when we were talking about him in the summer, there was a part of me that was a bit like, what's all the hype about? Like, he's had a good spell, he's had a good period, but is he really a top level player? What I would say is at the start of this season, he's proven that. And my opinion of him now is probably much higher than it's ever been. So Semenyo, an option. I'd like to think it, but I also realized that he'd cost a pretty penny. Look, my prediction is that come January, Arsenal will not be doing any major business unless there is an emergency, unless they feel like they are short somewhere and it could be the difference between them winning and not winning. But that is a very, very specific set of circumstances I think we'd need to find ourselves in to go out and do a move like that. In the summer, maybe, but I can't see it. I can't see it right now. Afsar says, if both Rice and Zubimendi are both injured, then who comes in as cover? We are short. Well, obviously, Christian Norgard will be one of those guys. I suppose Lewis Skelly can play midfield. I suppose if push comes to shove, Calafiori can do it. Ben White can do it. I'd imagine that Kai Havertz, when he returns, will be considered as one of the midfield options. Probably not as a 6, but as an 8 or a 10 maybe. So I don't think we're as short as we could be, but I also don't think it's an area where we're massively stacked. Like, the problem for me is not what if Rice and Zubimendi get injured in terms of numbers or volume of players. The problem is who comes in that gives you the same qualities. Because I don't think Christian Norgard's on that level. Good squad player, but he's not on that level. And that would be my only concern. So there would be a significant drop-off there. And that's probably the one area in the team. You look at it now and you go, yeah, that's quite the drop-off, isn't it? Juan says, I feel too much rotation can take a while before it clicks. But since teams in Europe play a bit more expansively, would it not be better to rotate more than usual in this game? I'm all for rotation against Slavia Prague. I am. I really, really am. And I know people keep saying it's the Champions League. You've got to take it seriously. Of course you do. But I think there's nothing wrong with sometimes rolling the dice, as Mikel has done on multiple occasions already this season, and saying, I trust in my squad. I believe in my squad, and they can go out and then get me the result that we need. Listen, if we avoid defeat in Slavia Prague, but we manage to protect and rest a load of players ahead of that big game at the Stadium of Light at the weekend, I'm fine with that. We've won 3 from 3. We've got 9 points from 9 in the Champions League. If we move on to 10 rather than 12, not an issue for me. Not an issue for me. Jid says, what are your top 5 players of the season for Arsenal so far in order from 5th to 1st? You can answer other questions while you think about it, but I won't be able to think about it if I'm answering other questions. So let's just get this one out of the way. Okay, this is really tough. My number, I'm not going to say them in that order because you want them 5th. I'm going to go with... okay, so 5th, I'm going to go with... who am I going with in 5th? 5th is a tough one for me. I've got my 3rd, I've got 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st all written down already. People might agree, people might disagree. Okay, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go with that number 5. I'm going to go with David Raya. At 4, I'm going to go with Ricardo Calafiori. At 3, I'm going to go with Martin Zubimendi. At 2, I'm going to go with Julien Timber. And at number 1, I'm going to go with Gabriel. So Raya 5th, Calafiori 4th, Zubimendi 3rd, Timber 2nd, Gabriel 1st. What's amazing about that is that of my 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are part of the defense, which kind of falls in line, doesn't it, with the way that we've been getting through games and sort of building at the start of this season. So yeah, that's my pick. Feel free to shoot it down. Ben says, look at the difference between Gyökeres and Marino. When Gyökeres came off, he doesn't pose a threat up front at all. No, what I think's happened here is that I think that display picture, what is that? I think that Victor Gyökeres has done a lot of great work at Arsenal since arriving. That has gone under the radar. And although I hope he's not injured and that he's able to participate in the upcoming games, if he's a doubt for Prague, leave him out, save him for Sunderland. Although I think that, I want the guy to be fit and I want the guy to be available. The fact that he came off and our attacking performance dropped off the way it did in the second half at Burnley, it kind of just shines a light on what he brings to the table that some people miss. Like to have an obvious example like that of one half with Gyökeres doing his thing versus one half without Gyökeres doing his thing, and to see the stark contrast between the two, I think that works well in terms of just educating, not having a pop at people, but just maybe bringing to light what some people might have missed when analysing and assessing his performances. Joe says, love the team at the moment, but I'm concerned we're not taking more chances. It's why the set piece stuff is a narrative, not that I care. Yeah, listen, we're not perfect. We're not perfect. There's loads that we can improve on, and that is one of the things for sure. But again, is it a cause for major concern at this stage? I personally don't think it is, but you always strive for perfection, don't you? You always work towards being flawless, and we're not there. But we're also not a million miles away either. Reese says, would you like to see a disgusting back six with all our defenders and Miles Lewis-Skelly in midfield, just to see out a game? I, for one, would really like us to park the bus. I've got no issue with defensive football. I've been a big fan of Italian football for such a long time that if I didn't like defensive football, then I probably will be watching the wrong league. It's not like it used to be, but I can appreciate good defending, good structure. I really, really can. Really, really can. Calvin Wade says, where's Rice? I didn't pick Rice in my top 5. I don't think Rice overall this season has been better than any of those guys that I've just mentioned. I stick by that. Raya, Calafiori, Zubimendi, Timber, Gabriel. I think Rice in the last few weeks has improved and got up to that level that we all know that he is, of course, capable of. But this is based on this season so far. That was the question. Guitar Solo says, would you include Noni Madueke pre-injury? If I'd have done it at that time, I probably would have included him. But I'm doing it now, and he hasn't been in the picture for a while. And for me, those guys have remained consistent and have performed extremely well. Extremely well. He also goes on to ask, which current injured player do you think we missed the most? I still think it's Odegaard, man. I still think it's Odegaard. I think we've missed Havertz as well, but Odegaard for me is the one because of the reasons that I mentioned a little bit earlier on in the show. James says, how are you? Have you noticed that nobody is moaning about us being set piece FC since Man City and Liverpool won this weekend? That's because we're clean sheet FC now. That's what I renamed us after the win at Burnley. But guys, look, gonna love you and leave you. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. Really do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video. If you're with us on YouTube, that really does help. Please subscribe to the channel as well. If you're new, we'd love to have you as part of the family. If you'd like to go one further and become a patron and support me to bring you more podcasts, remember, you get bonus exclusive content after every single game. Plus, you get access to every single episode that we do ad-free as well, which I know is a big deal for a lot of people. You also become part of the Patreon family, whereby you can hit me directly via the Patreon messaging platform, or you can speak to our other patrons. Lots of great conversations going on in there, and it's all for less than the price of a cup of coffee per month. And as a freelancer, you are doing me a huge favor and supporting me, which is allowing me to spend more time on this pod than having to go chasing around for other things to keep the lights on here at Casa de Simiu and keep buying those nappies because there's a lot of them being utilized right now in my household. Anyway, thank you so much as always for all the support, for all the love. Really do appreciate it. And I will see you all on the next pod. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a great day. Up the Arsenal, and goodbye. Remember, Declan the dominant, not the destroyer.
Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry Simiu time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.